catch my drift. Alright, so I've sent some invites now. I'll let you know when these two players are in, and we should be good to go. But, so we do know that Buraak plays Liu Kang. He played Flame Fist against Madzin. And if K-Top goes with either Dragon's Fire Liu Kang, or probably, I would say he's going to go with Raiden, is that a matchup you're particularly familiar with, Glue? Or is it something that we're going to sort of learn as we go, if it's going to be Thunder God versus Flame Fist?
Well, I think we seen last week, I'm not 100% sure whether we did see that match with K-Top and whether we've seen Raiden and Corbin, but as far as the Raiden thing goes, if we could just drop back to mention this for a little while, with the whole balance change to the game, with armored moves being removed from the game and all this sort of super safe options being gone with no real risk. I think
you guys are welcome to join.
Currently joining. Raiden having that armored move, me and Ketchup talked about it. It makes him almost impossible to break down if you do him right. So if you take Scorpion, who's an offensive heavy character, and Raiden against other offensive characters doesn't do very well because his mid options are so bad and he has a lot of holes in his gameplay. I think Raiden alone with the threat of the armored move can really slow down a Scorpion player. You know what I mean? I think that's what the Raiden player has to do. And eventually, we're talking Raiden, we're talking a character that Thunder God, for instance, that hits you once and puts you straight into the corner. And Scorpion, now with the balance changes, is going to have to make those crazy reads, if you want to call them, to armor out of the corner or to teleport out of the corner, because his takedown's not going to do much. So if we're to take this purely on theory or on paper fighting, the Scorpion player has to be way more careful pressing Raiden than he Raiden player just plays a little more reserved. I think that's the way a Raiden player should have to play that match, to break down.
Oh, can you guys hear me okay? I do believe.
I can hear you,
okay,
yes.
No,
Don't worry.
Sorry, no. I
was
thought,
waiting
I
we
thought
had
my
something
stuff
go
had
wrong.
frozen up, because literally, my menu froze in place right as it went quiet, so I was like, uh-oh, as my PC died. But no, it's okay. Anyway, back to the match at hand, I suppose. I do believe it's going to be Flame Fist, and it's hard to say, because K-Top plays so many characters at a good level. Like, he's definitely got his favourites. I'd definitely say it's fair to say that his Thunder God and his Hishkuten are kind of like his premier characters. But we have seen him with Flame Fist. I believe we saw him whip out Sub-Zero at some point in the Pro League. I could be wrong. As well as, other characters like that we haven't seen in the past. If it is going to be Flame Fist versus Thunder God, that's always a weird one, because Flame Fist is a character that is seen to be really powerful right now, but we don't really see all too much of. But it really comes down to just the Flaming Fist buff, the chip damage, and the fireballs. Now, a character like Thunder God is not going to have to really care about taking chip damage from Flame Fist, because one thing that Thunder God gets a lot of, which we don't actually see brought up too often, but it is a factor, are a huge amount of block breaker potential. So Thunder God builds so much bar, you almost want to use more block breakers than you normally would, because you have so much more meter than other characters. And when you're against someone like, Flame Fist, as soon as you block anything and you see him go into those flurry punches with the chip buff on, you kind of do get the option to block breaker away, because you know you're going to build that bar back a lot faster than he's going to build it. Especially if you're not letting him get that situation where he can put the flurry punches on.
Okay, so it looks like we are going to be immediately good to go here. Welcome, everybody. This is our first semi-final of Week 7 of the ESL EU Mortal Kombat XL Community Cups. It's going to be Buraak 65 versus K-Top, Flame Fist Liu Kang against, I think definitely that is absolutely Thunder God Raiden. For some reason, I had to think about that. Not entirely sure why. K-Top is going to burn that first spot, and as I can say, it builds it back immediately and secures that first hit bonus. Very important.
Strip guard from Buraak just to start things off, but there's a Vicinity Blast. We say this week after week, and we're going to be saying it again today. Vicinity Blast doing so much work again, and there we go, safe as well. We see Buraak trying to force a block after it, but K-Top laying on really thick amounts of pressure right now.
Now, one thing I think K-Top does incredibly well in this matchup, or just not necessarily... Oh, he goes for the hard knockdown tech. That's so sick. You very rarely see that executed, but K-Top with that sort of godlike, no pun intended, Raiden execution, he's going to take that first round and look really strong right there. One thing I think K-Top does really well is optimizing everything into corner pressure, which is obviously where Thunder God wants to be, right? I think optimizing max damage into restand, or as we saw there, the hard knockdown into Thunderball. And wow, the interruption. This guy knows the matchup.
Well, that's what you need to show. You need to show him that, okay, you're going to want to turn anything on block into windmill punches, but if there's a gap there, or he isn't allowed to, or if he can't follow up from windmill punches because you know he wants to cancel, then that is crucial info, especially early in the set, to show your opponent this crucial thing you need to do. I'm not going to let you do, but there's a parry. Actually,
that was a really delayed parry as well, but it still worked.
It seemed like he really thought it was going to almost whiff punish it, but just caught the later end of the frames. But Buraak, wow, he just gets it by running forward one K-Top with a really dominating game one.
That was really good. That was an incredibly dominant performance. I think kind of what we expect of K-Top at this point. Has got a really strong Thunder God. We have seen it week after week, but it's just relentless pressure. Just going to double check to make sure. Yeah, I definitely did. Making sure I AFK'd because I have forgot to do that in the past. But yeah, I think he's looking really good right now. We're going to switch this round. And I think it's basically just comes down to just optimizing your screen positioning. You'll notice we pretty much didn't spend barely a second of that game in the mid-screen. It was pretty much either in the corner or right near the corner. And that's what K-Top does, you know. It's what Thunder God does, it's what K-Top does, and it's how you maximize playing a character like Thunder God, which just demands a huge amount of rushdown if you want to execute it properly. And K-Top is, you know, he's played this variation since day one, I believe.
Yeah, he's got a lot of playtime with it for sure. And there's that running forward when he really wants to try and take that first hit, but it was actually getting snatched away by Buraak.
Oh my god!
Wow, that was dangerous Superman, but I mean, it works. I mean, if it's early in the game and one Superman, this is the payoff. He's already got the corner pressure on one Superman. It would have been a full combo on block, sure, but on hit, he's already managed to just force Buraak straight into the corner, where it's exactly where he needs him to be, because he's just all over him right now.
Yeah, he's going to go for the check. And again, blocking the shocker into the counterpoke Vicinity Blast. That's going to be a full combo. If the combo alone doesn't kill, which it does, the chip would have done it, and K-Top taking another round.
Kind of makes you think it
and
would
here
have
we
been,
are. We're in corner central once again.
Kind of what makes you think it would have been better for K-Top to not kill with a Superman, so it was guaranteed the chip, just to build a little bit more bar, but it doesn't like he's too worried. And Buraak with a flying kick just needs to get out of the corner until he's desperately trying to fight out of it, but K-Top is just not letting him move anywhere. Catches another low. Buraak,
and I'm going to say consistently K-Top is now catching that low because Buraak is looking so often for that overhead, and as I say it, K-Top lands a second overhead, calls that double bluff and goes for like what, 2 or 3 lows in a row, calls it on the overhead right there, cashes out, gets massive damage, and that's going to be a second game just like that.
It's tough, right? Because we know that Buraak, he's losing to corner pressure, he's losing to 50-50s, and he's losing to corner carry. However, that doesn't necessarily mean he has to hold all of this. He has wake-up options. He has, you know, a lot more meter than he's spending, really. Like, his main issue is he's starved for bar all the time. And when he does have bar, he's not using it on the right reversal options. He's not using it on the right defensive options to just get away. Which is kind of, because he's always has no bar to work with, he is in these situations where he has to hold 50-50s, he has to hold meaties. Like, he can't do anything about it because he doesn't have the resources to deal with it because he's not spending them properly.
Now, I'm going to be honest, I will make one observation. We really haven't seen Buraak get the chance to do any Flame Fist specific moves besides that parry, right? It's just coming from...
It's because he can't... K-Top isn't letting him play. K-Top is playing
he's not letting him play the game.
He's cornering him and he's just doing his thing until he dies. And
we just haven't really had a chance to see. Yeah, we haven't seen Buraak really get going. And as we can see, Staggering It getting a really nice catch on the mid, and just like that, with one touch, we find ourselves back into the corner. You're not going to be able to punish that Vicinity Blast, so I mean, it's... Oh no, presses a button! K-Top's going to capitalize, doesn't quite get the restand, so somewhat of a lifeline, but I mean, he's just tagging him over and over again. Buraak again in big danger. The meaty plus frames forcing the bar out of Buraak, but now he's got nothing to defend himself with.
Does get a nice trip guard though, so he's actually going to close this life lead down a little bit. Back to mid-screen. K-Top just needs one hit to push him to the corner, and that's exactly what he's going to do. 15%
damage
really
doesn't even
matter. And
that was really smart as well, ending his combo early just to make sure he didn't even need to reposition. Oh no, day one overhead. He's going to eat the second hit and match point for K-Top.
I can't help but feel like Buraak's kind of just cashed out at this point. I mean, that really was his round to try and control and seize, but as soon as he got hit by that overhead, it was game. I mean, he missed the anti-air attempt. He didn't go for it. And just at the back too. I mean, that's the nice parry, but again, it's kind of showing K-Top that Buraak's defensive options are really starting to run out very fast. Uses the bar, there's a down 2 again. I mean, the damage is chipping up. Finally, we see him with the patience to block the Superman dive, and it's going to push this back to mid-screen. Gets a nice chunk of damage into the buff, and another patient. block on the wake up, but unfortunately he doesn't get a full punish at all, but that's going to be death. That was the kind of round that Buraak needs to
I was about to say, we finally saw some Flame Fist in its, truest form, you could definitely say right there. The variation is fantastic at just shredding health really quick. Absolutely massively. Just before you know it, you've lost like a third of your life. But unfortunately, he's going to get the hard knockdown. There comes the pressure. Buraak pressing buttons. K-Top's going to get all of this damage. He's going to spend a second bar and just get 38%. He's going to... Wow, he goes for the Vicinity Blast. That's actually game over. A convincing 3-0. And what a play at the end to match armor with armor.
No, that was really, really smart. I'm not quite sure if he intended to absorb the flying kick to punish it, but the fact that he went and did Vicinity Blast did mean that it was basically punishable on hit. Because even though it connected and it did damage, I mean, it hit the armor, so he still hit a brick wall. And Vicinity Blast recovery being so fast, able to come back and just smack him right out for it. I mean, that was just a really, really convincing set of games, I think. And a one from me, respect.
Definitely a dominant performance right there. I think it was pretty one-sided. I mean, we can all agree on that for sure. But I feel like there were elements. I'd like to throw over to the Eternal Use for Glue. Have you been able to sort of pick anything out of that set? What do you reckon you should have done differently?
Well, that's an interesting... I know it seems like a pretty open and shut sort of match, but there's some interesting points there. I think K-Top obviously did well. I mean, he able to play exactly the way he wanted to play all the time. Which, I've said this earlier about, I said this last week about aggressive, offensive-heavy characters and or players, and I think maybe you guys might back me up on this. You tend to find that people that are so heavy on offense and have their offense locked down so much tend to struggle with defense, tend to struggle against the thing that they put on opponents themselves. And we've seen one round where Buraak got one bit of offense going and Kate. I think he even did a wake up regular upward Superman miles away. So if Buraak had caught on to that at the start of the set, I'm pretty sure he could have had a better game than that. I mean, it was a bit disappointing that he didn't get to play and get to do what he wants, but that should have been his game plan. His game plan should have been to put an aggressive, offensive-heavy character on the back foot and make him block his stuff just to see what he was really made of. K-Top swarmed him and just dominated him the whole way with his offense. So
I feel like as well, all it took was like a couple of those meter burn Supermans on reaction to like maybe one, or they weren't even all reactions. They were just reads from K-Top right there.
Well,
where that was enough to stop him from trying to do any projectiles. I mean, the thing is, Thunder God, unless he can react to certain things, he is relatively easy to zone out as certain characters because he doesn't have that displacer teleport. Meter burn, Superman, it is a fast charge, but it's quite a telegraphed attack, right? It's quite obvious when certain Raidens are going to go for it unless you've got a particularly slow projectile. I would have liked to have seen, I really would have liked to have seen some Flame Fist just zoning attempts.
Well,
we didn't see any of those buff fireballs, right? Which might have kept him in check to a degree.
We've seen absolutely no zoning. One of the top tools that Liu Kang has. It's in fact, better than his... I think it could be possibly better than his offense, because his offense it's time-based, it's stamina-based, it's sort of limited, and you have to reset and stop. But his zoning is incredible. You can take half an opponent's life away with his zoning. He didn't get a chance to do it. And I realize Raiden can really struggle with that. So again, it's just a matchup where we didn't
10% fireballs, man. It's 10% projectiles. But I kind of feel like K-Top knew that was what he needed to do, and that's why. Let's not forget, we did see K-Top throw out some very risky and seemingly random Superman dives, but I'm willing to bet that was to catch fireball attempts. That was to catch him, buffing up in the neutral. I think K-Top was determined to show him this crucial thing that you need to do to compete in the neutral with me. I'm not going to let you do without, making you second guess. And that's exactly what he did. And like you were saying earlier about needing to see some more rushdown attempts, I kind of feel like that's why we saw so many reversals from K-Top. Because as soon as it wasn't K-Top's turn, we saw Vicinity Blasts, we saw Wake Up Attacks, and the one round that we saw, we saw him take came from baiting those Wake Ups. The problem is, I kind of feel like he was a little bit too antsy to not push that momentum, to know, right, I am now reading you, you now have to play my game. But unfortunately, he just took that one hit to put him in the corner again, and he was kind of right back where he left off, unfortunately.
Well,
so that brings us on to our second